The Beach Boys wanted one, Prince sang about a little red one, and Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, made a movie about one. 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way. Chevrolet's Corvette, like the pop culture that it's so firmly embedded in, has been exported from the United States to the world for decades. But it's only now that this 8th generation Vette has come to Australia officially for the first time. And it's gone all supercar, with a mid-engine layout taking over from the more traditional front-engine rear drive arrangement of its predecessors. It's been a while since we've been behind the wheel, and we're about to drive the current lineup, from the iconic Stingray to the just-released hybrid E-Ray and the monstrously rapid Z06. So stay with us to see if America's sports car is your kind of high-performance, super muscle machine.
There are 2 Stingray grades in Australia, the 2LT kicking things off at 175k before on-road costs, which puts it in the same ballpark as the Audi RS5, BMW M4 and Jaguar F-Type, as well as the Porsche 718 Boxster and Cayman. Then the 3LT adds a more premium interior package and 15k to the price tag. For all the details, check out our detailed written review at carsguide.com.au. But the Stingray's standard equipment highlights are dual-zone climate control, 14-speaker Bose audio, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, a 12-inch digital instrument display, heated and ventilated 8-way power seats, a head-up display, and the Z51 performance package, the details of which we'll get to shortly.
There's a laundry list of other included features, from a performance data recorder to an 8-inch multimedia central screen. But suffice it to say, the Corvette Stingray goes toe-to-toe with its key competitors in terms of spec.
Then, to go with its mega hybrid performance boost, the E-Ray adds a cool 100 grand to the cost of entry, although it's in Primo 3LZ trim, adding things like the track-ready ZER pack, monster carbon ceramic brakes, a carbon fibre and leather detailed heated steering wheel, and even bigger rims. And if you popped a couple of brave pills, the track-ready Z06 sails over the 300k threshold and gets serious with additions including top-spec multimedia, Napa leather-trimmed GT2 Sport seats, borderline F1 size rubber, and heaps more.
What can you say about the Corvette, other than it follows the poster-on-the-wall supercar wedge philosophy with hints of stealthy angularity in the details? There are also echoes of Corvette's past, particularly around the headlights, reminiscent of the C7 that precedes it, and the split taillights at the rear. But put this car in the same car park as a Ferrari, Lambo and McLaren, and the Corvette Stingray fits right in.
Part of the motivation for the Corvette's move to mid-engine is greater appeal to a younger demographic, and the wider, even wedgier E-Ray and Z06 feature more pronounced side air intakes, with the latter also copping a mildly made-over front end for better breathing as well as rear-end tweaks.
Inside, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more driver-focused layout anywhere, with this wraparound, slightly inward chamfered section defining the cockpit, and a big barrier between the driver and passenger. There's also this large media screen and digital instrumentation panel presented to the driver as well.
A long line of buttons controls AC as well as seat heating and ventilation, and the push-button gear shift is clearly inspired by the exotic Italians.
It's all very racy, but works well from an ergonomic point of view. And if you're in the market for a high-profile car like this, it's just right, with high-quality touch points throughout the cabin. Proudly on display through a strategically placed window like a piece of high-end jewellery in a silk case is Chevrolet's 6.2-litre LT2 V8, developing around 370 kilowatts, which is the best part of 500 horsepower and 640 newton metres, sending it all to the rear wheels through an 8-speed dual-clutch auto transmission.
This naturally aspirated all-alloy unit is part of GM's 5th generation small block V8 engine family, featuring dry sump lubrication, direct injection, a billet steel crank, forged conrods and variable valve timing. The E-Ray's nose-mounted electric motor sends an extra 119 kilowatts, 165 newton meters to the front wheels for all-wheel drive, and a combined power output of just under 490 kilowatts and more than 800 newton meters. Then the track-focused Z06 is propelled by an entirely different 5.5 litre LT6 Atmo V8. A highly tuned high-compression unit featuring dual overhead cams, titanium rods, a flatplane crank as opposed to the LT2's crossplane, and stainless steel tubular headers for peak power of no less than 475 kilowatts, arriving at 8,400 RPM.
Practicality is a relative term when you're talking about a two-seater sports car, and it's really competitors like the Porsche 718 Cayman and Boxster and the Jaguar F-Type that we're looking to for comparison.
At just over 4.6 metres long and a little more than 1.9 metres wide, the Corvette is appreciably bigger than both of those, and the E-Ray and Z06 are longer and wider again, although they share the Stingray's height and wheelbase.
There's plenty of space and breathing room for two, and storage is okay, with pockets in the doors with enough room for a bottle if you're willing to lay it down, a couple of cup holders under a lid in the centre console, as well as a lidded storage box between the seats. There's a USB-A and a USB-C in there, as well as a wireless charger between the seats and a decent sized glove box.
While there's no useful space behind the seats, the Corvette is at least a match and arguably just ahead of the F-Type and 718 for cabin storage. There's a frunk in the nose which is deep and wide enough for a couple of decent soft bags or a modest grocery shop, plus there's a 12-volt outlet. There's more space in the appreciably larger rear boot for a combined total of 357 litres, both areas with cargo nets. Pretty darn good for a supercar wedge like this, but bear in mind there's no spare. The tyres are run flats.
The Corvette's fuel consumption on the combined urban extra urban cycle is 13.5 litres per 100 kilometres. The LT2 engine featuring active fuel management, otherwise known as cylinder deactivation, which knocks out 4 cylinders out of 8 at low loads.
On test, we saw an average of 13.8 litres per 100 kilometres over a relatively brief road drive in the Stingray, taking in mainly B road and some freeway running. And that's in line with expectations for a sports car with this much performance potential. The E-Ray features a 1.9 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery self-replenished from coasting and braking, allowing an EV-only and neighbour-friendly stealth mode, 4 to 6 kilometres at a maximum of 72 kilometres an hour. There's also a shuttle mode, which also engages just the front axle on electric power to a speed of 24 kilometres an hour. The E-Ray's official combined cycle figure is 11.5 litres per 100 kilometres, which is pretty impressive, and the Z06 is just under 16 litres per 100 kilometres. We only drove them on the track, so no test figures. With a 70 litre fuel tank on board, the theoretical range for the Stingray is around 520 kilometres, reduced to about 505 k's based on our real-world result.
When I first started driving the Stingray, I thought one of the windows was open. I could hear things, but it turns out it's the engine, it's the tyres, because it's right there. And I kind of like that a lot. And the standard entry-level Stingray will accelerate from 0 to 100 km/h in 3.4 seconds. It is ferociously fast, and you have things like a performance exhaust that just reminds you that you have a traditional US V8 just behind your ears.
The Stingray's standard Z51 performance package comprises Brembo brakes, a sports suspension tune, that performance exhaust, a lower final drive ratio, an electronic limited slip differential, unique front and rear splitters, a heavy-duty cooling system, and Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres. Claimed 0 to 100 km/h for the E-Ray is a blistering 2.9 seconds, but we saw a mind-bending 2.4 seconds on track at Melbourne's Sandown Raceway. And the hybrid's track-ready ZER pack includes 20-inch front and 21-inch rear alloy wheels, specifically tweaked suspension, and a taller gurney-style flap for track use. The track-focused Z06's LT6 V8's flatplane crank arrangement results in an even firing order, which is not as smooth as the crossplane LT2, but it revs to 8600 RPM, and on the circuit you can feel the aero all over and under the car doing its job. Suspension is by double wishbones, front and rear. Boy, does it do a good job. You've got different modes. The Magna Ride dampers mean that you can dial in sport or touring or track. Now, track on the road is fairly masochistic. You don't want to punish yourself. Sport is firm. It dials everything up just that little bit more. But touring is fantastic. It really makes this a very composed and forgiving kind of package for such a focused machine. It's amazing. Like, we're jiggling over things there. Now we're in tour, and all of a sudden, it just smooths it out. Absolutely magic. You've got staggered rims on the Stingray, 19-inch at the front, 20 at the rear, substantial rubber, and low profile at that. And it's surprisingly forgiving. We've been driving on the road and track today, and it is seriously impressive in that regard. The car's aluminium monocoque means it's stiff and light, while sidestepping a big buck carbon tub. The front to rear weight distribution is 40-60, and it feels well balanced, while the 245-35 front and 305-30 rear Michelin Pilot Sport tyres deliver tenacious grip. Worth noting the E-Ray and Z06's monster 275-30 front and humongous 345-25 rear Michelin Pilot Sport 4S rubber. Carbon fibre rims and semi-slick tyres are optionally available.
Also, the steering feel beautifully connected. This wheel is not really a wheel. It's chamfered off, squared off at the top and bottom, so you have a clear view into the instrument display dead ahead, but the connection with the front wheels is just lovely. The transmission as well, the 8-speed dual clutch, it's as rapid as you're going to find, really, particularly when you're in manual mode. Here we go, one press of the button into manual, all of a sudden, just quick, seamless. The brakes are huge as well. Really, the amount of power that you can apply into the brakes in this car is quite astonishing, and we were punishing various models on the track earlier with the carbon ceramic optional package for the Z06, and it stood up to that brilliantly well.
The E-Ray comes standard with the carbon ceramic rotors, and even when fitted with its standard cast iron discs, the Z06 features 6 piston calipers at the front and 4 piston units at the rear.
In terms of miscellaneous, just ergonomic type things, big shout out for putting in a standard front lift system, so 40 millimeters when you need to clear a low gutter or a sharp kind of gully. It's welcome, put it that way. You've got a turning circle slightly smaller in the Z06 than it is in the Stingray and E-Ray, but neither of them are outrageous, so in terms of turning around, that's fine. Exterior vision, yeah, look, standard procedure for a mid-engine car like this. Over your left-hand shoulder, 3/4 is a bit tricky, but there are cameras everywhere, and the mirrors do give you a lot of coverage.
The Stingray Coupe features a removable roof panel that can be stored in the rear boot, while the convertible shifts to a full retractable hardtop that folds in 16 seconds and can be raised or lowered at speeds up to 48 kilometres an hour.
As is the case with a lot of high-end, low-volume sports cars, the Corvette hasn't been independently assessed by ANCAP for safety, but there have been some worthwhile additions in terms of active crash avoidance tech for the new model year.
As well as AEB and active cruise, the Stingray now features forward collision alert, lane keeping assistance, follow distance indicator and intelligent auto high beam, joining rear cross traffic alert and blind spot monitoring and tyre pressure monitoring. The airbag count is 4, front and side for driver and passenger, so safety scores well.
On the other hand, when it comes to warranty cover, 3 years, 100,000 kilometres is lame in 2024. Even McLaren and Porsche, and they lag the field, are at 3 years unlimited kilometres, with the likes of Audi and Jaguar at 5 years unlimited kilometres.
Service is recommended every 12 months, 12,000 kilometres, the average annual price for the Stingray coming in at around $1,100 over the first few years, largely because the first and every second service thereafter is a major one, including things like a transmission fluid change. That's way lower than the mid-engine Euro exotics, and it's important to note service price will vary according to the car's use, different state and territory labour rates, and other factors.
Chevrolet toyed with the idea of a mid-engine Corvette with a series of concepts emerging over the decades. But since it pulled the trigger and put the C8 into production, it's only become better. It retains enough of its V8 muscle car personality to connect with its ancestors while poking the current crop of mid-engine supercars in the eye thanks to its mega performance, great dynamics and cut price positioning. The E-Ray is mega and the Z06 challenges V8 hypercars, getting on for 3 times its price. It's not for everyone, but if you relate more to Bowling Green, Kentucky than Modena, St. Agatha or Woking, this car's for you. Freedom!